The other day, Joe Biden embraced yet another left position. He wants to raise corporate taxes. He wants corporations to pay their fair share. Now, there's two problems with this. The first is the idea of a fair share. It's actually a medieval concept. It goes back to feudalism, but that's a whole other video, and one of these days I'll go there. I want to focus just now on the idea of a corporate tax. Corporate tax rates, the idea of raising them, come usually from Democrats, sometimes from Republicans. But whomever they come from, they're the biggest scam since the passage in Great Britain by the Parliament of the Townshend Duties in 1767. It's a scam. It's political prestidigitation. It's political sleight of hand. Because there's no such thing as a corporate tax. There's no such thing as a business tax. And in this video, I'm going to explain that, and I'm going to explain why there's no such thing as a corporate tax. If you like this video, please leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, share the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you know when I post new videos. So now let's move on and talk about why there's no such thing as a corporate tax.
And it's time corporate America paid their fair share of taxes. We thought in our administration we should lower the tax from the high 30s to 28%, but lower it to 21%. I'm going to raise it back up to 28%.
Corporate taxes, business taxes in general, are part of overhead. Overhead are the things that businesses have to pay not to produce the product they're making. You're making cars, it's not the actual cost of the materials that go into the car and things like that. Overhead involves your utility bills. If you're leasing the building or the store that you're in, you have to pay all those things. Taxes are part of overhead. I worked for a corporation in the commercial sector for a while. You know what goes into all your costs, and overhead, taxes are part of it. And taxes, like all things in overhead, get worked into your price structure. So basically, as taxes go up, your prices go up. I worked for a corporation in Philadelphia. The city, in an effort to it was a parking corporation, the city, in an effort to cut down the number of cars and traffic, basically tripled the taxes we were paying to operate. What did we do? Did we pay those taxes? We had to. But how did we pay them? We doubled our prices. Not only that, we laid off our workforce by about 40%. 40% of the people who work for us lost their jobs because of that, because we were doing less business. That's what happens when you raise corporate taxes. The dirty little secret about corporate and other business taxes is that they don't pay them. What they do is they collect them from you and pass the money off to the government. When you go to McDonald's, whatever percentage McDonald's is paying in corporate taxes that work into the cost of the burger you buy gets added to the price. You're paying those corporate taxes, not the corporation. Let me repeat that. Corporations don't pay corporate taxes. They don't pay business taxes. They collect the taxes by working the cost of those taxes as overhead into their pricing structure, raising the prices, and you pay those corporate taxes when you buy the product or the service. So when you see a politician saying, don't worry, we're not raising your taxes, we're raising the tax on a corporation, they're feeding you a line. That's why I said it's a scam. Because those corporations are going to raise their prices, and you're going to end up paying the tax. You won't pay it as a tax, you'll pay it as part of the cost of buying the product. You're being scammed. It's sleight of hand. Ben Franklin knew this 250 years ago when he was representing a couple of the colonies over in Great Britain. When the British Parliament passed what became known as the Townshend Duties, he was in a discussion with some of the British officials, and this was after the Stamp Act protests and riots had occurred in the colonies. The stamp tax was a direct tax on Americans. You needed to get married or you bought a newspaper. These things were directly taxed by Parliament. And the Americans threw a fit. This is what sort of pushing the Americans increasingly toward what becomes the American Revolution. So what the British did with the Townshend Duties was, instead of taxing Americans directly, they did it indirectly by taxing the shippers, the merchants, and the companies that were pushing their products into the United States, because most of the things Americans consumed came from Great Britain. What that meant was that all of these items became pricier. And in a discussion with Franklin, they expressed the hope to him that because these were external taxes, these were indirect taxes, that the Americans would accept them in a way that they had refused to accept the stamp tax. And it was Franklin, who may have been the first person to ever use the term consumer, at least the first person I've ever seen use it, pointed out to the British that this wouldn't fly. Direct or indirect made no difference. He said, ultimately, the consumers pay for these external taxes on trade. The consumers ultimately pay the price. Your businesses are just collecting it for Parliament. It's a scam. Franklin knew this 250 years ago. The American colonists, as unsophisticated and uneducated as they may have been compared to our elites today, understood this. It was sleight of hand. And that's why they didn't buy the Townshend Duties. That's why they did expand their boycott of British products. That's why even when the British, through some shenanigans, cut the price of British tea, Americans still purchased higher priced smuggled Dutch tea because of the principle involved. They didn't want to pay these external taxes because they knew the price they paid for British tea, even though it was cheaper than Dutch tea, included the tax, and they didn't want to yield on the principle to the British Parliament that they could be taxed by Parliament. So the Townshend Duties just pushed the Americans even closer to revolution. But keep this in mind, 250 years ago, 2.5 centuries ago, Benjamin Franklin and the American colonists and the Patriot leaders all understood that this was a scam. But today, our politicians are trying to scam us again. What Biden's proposing, what the left wants to do through higher corporate and business taxes, is to do the same thing that the British Parliament tried to do to us 250 years ago. They're hoping that we're not as smart as the colonists were 2.5 centuries ago, that we don't have leaders who are intelligent and capable of critical thought in the way Ben Franklin was 250 years ago. Because this is nothing but a scam. You will pay those corporate taxes. Corporations will collect them for the feds. It's that simple. There's no such thing as a business tax. Let me repeat that. There's no such thing as a business tax. Businesses don't pay taxes. They collect them from you. The money ultimately comes from you. You pay all business taxes. Period. The other thing that happens when you raise corporate taxes, and even Obama recognized this, that's one of the reasons that, and Biden mentions this in his talk, that they lowered corporate taxes in the first place. As corporate taxes go up, as these taxes are worked into the pricing structure, the way for businesses to avoid that, the way for businesses to get their prices lower so they can sell more product, is to move out of the United States. So if you raise corporate taxes here, corporations will move to, wherever, Mexico, Vietnam, the old days, China, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, Ireland, other places in the UK, anywhere where the corporate tax structure is lower. Because if they can, when they lower costs, their prices also decline. when their costs go up because of business taxes, corporate taxes, their prices go up. They become less competitive. They sell less product. They lose money. That's how markets work. So if Joe Biden wants corporations to pay their fair share, not only is he not actually getting them to pay anything because you're going to pay for it, but he's giving them an incentive to leave the country, to pick up their factories and move out of the country. That's what was happening before Barack Obama cut corporate taxes. But apparently this whole logic seems to have escaped Joe's mind because maybe he's losing his mind and now he's being influenced by Bernie Sanders and the others who don't understand economics, except in a framework of Marxism. And we know how well that's worked around the world. Just show me a place where Marxists have done well. There aren't any. So don't allow yourself to be scammed. Prove to your political leaders that you're just as smart, hopefully smarter, than Americans were 250 years ago. Let them know, if not directly, by voting in November, that you understand that corporate taxes, all business taxes, while they're collected by the businesses and by the corporations, are ultimately paid by you. So when you see Joe Biden or any other political leader stand up there and tell you how they're going to tax businesses and tax corporations and make them pay their fair share, don't forget that that's a scam. Don't forget it's sleight of hand. What they're really telling you, the translation is simple. They're trying to trick you because ultimately the price of those taxes are going to come out of your pockets. And as corporate taxes go up, companies will leave the United States. They'll move abroad and they'll take jobs with them. Those may be your jobs. That's what they're telling you. We want corporations to leave this country, and we're going to give them an incentive through the tax policies for them to move out. We want them to move out. We want them to take your jobs with them. And the corporations that don't move out and pay the taxes are going to bill you for it. So you get screwed both ways. You get screwed when you pay the taxes. You get screwed when you lose your job. You lose your benefits. That's what they're proposing. This is the policy they're running on. If you just open your eyes and give it some simple thought, you don't need an economics degree to understand this. So don't be fooled. Don't allow yourself to be scammed. And on that note, I'm out of here.